everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Amateur Hour podcast. My name is Jacob, and I finally got Deshaun joining me once again today.
Good afternoon, good night, good morning.
And today is Crisis Club Monday, the weekly segment we talk about the clubs in biggest crisis in world sport. This is Deshaun's first time doing a Crisis Club Monday episode. How you feeling for this, Deshaun?
Losing my Crisis Club virginity, always great. Very excited to talk about these struggling clubs, teams from around the world.
And we'll just get right into it. I'm going to start off this one and bring to you the Minnesota Timberwolves. Since starting 10-8 and looking like, a decent team that could slip into the playoffs in the Western Conference of the NBA, they have lost 7 games in a row. And in those 7 games, they have allowed at least 115 points in all 7. And in the last 5 games, they have allowed at least 125 points. Which, well, that's a scary stat to say the least. One of those games included a 139 to 127 point loss to the Oklahoma City Thunder. And they also lost 142 to 125 to the Los Angeles Lakers. I get the Lakers are good, but no team should be scoring 142 points on you. That should not happen.
Absolutely.
We'll move it on to the players partaking in this. I mean, Andrew Wiggins has been playing pretty well. This is the potential to be a career year for Andrew Wiggins. He's upped his player efficiency. He's upped his points by quite a bit. He's up 7 points from last year. This guy honestly could be in a conversation for MIP, but there's guys like Devontae Graham ahead of him in that, and Brandon Ingram. But this is a decent year for Andrew Wiggins on offense. But the Minnesota Timberwolves are scoring points. That's not the problem, and it never has been the problem for them really in the last few years. I don't think they have guys like Cat, but Cat, we know he's got some problems defensively, and Minnesota in terms of their defense, they have the 22nd best defensive rating in the NBA. They have allowed the second most second chance points in the entire NBA, and their opposition 3-point field goal percentage is 37.4, which is well above league average. It's 25th in the NBA in that mark. So these guys can't defend. That's what you're getting from this information. And they have good players. Like Jared Culver was a decent pick. They have Wiggins. They have Teague is not a bad facilitator at point guard. You're gonna get from Jeff Teague. You have Cat, who is looking like an MVP caliber player at the start of the season, who's shooting an absurd amount of 3-pointers this year.
Yeah, I think it's like 9 a game or something like
almost
that. It was
9
crazy.
a game.
Yeah,
almost 9 a game, which is ridiculous. But there's talent on this team, and they could challenge, but it's just they started so promisingly, and it just all of a sudden the defense is gone just off the table, because they are 12th for offensive rating in the NBA, but they're doing so poorly on defense. It's just ridiculous. Their opposition points per game is 28th in the NBA. It's the 3rd worst, but their points per game is 7th. So they literally can't defend. If you look at the players, you compare their offensive rating to their defensive ratings, almost all the players have a worse defensive rating than an offensive rating. The defensive rating is higher. So it's talking about their per 100 possessions. You're only looking at Cat, who's got who plays proper minutes, who's got a better offensive rating than defensive rating. But Cat's doing very well. His offensive rating is 123 to 109. So I won't necessarily constitute this.
Well, the defensive rating's still kind of high.
It is still kind of, but I think where you could see the problem is that they have allowed the second most second chance points. You can really fault Cat for that. It's what is he, 7-1?
Yeah.
So you got to clean up the glass a little bit better. Especially when your defense is that bad, you can't be allowing that many points coming off the board, giving the team another opportunity. When you're finding it so hard on those defensive sets to get the stop, when you do get a stop, you got to grab the rebound. And I think that's where he needs to do a little bit better, even though he's probably I haven't even checked, he's probably averaging a ton of rebounds per game though already. But let's see. Total rebound, he's averaging almost 12.
Oh, boy. So, yeah.
But
so what does that fall on if they're just getting too many offensive boards? Is that off the second miss? Because very similar to the Toronto
Softness.
Raptors, like we get a lot of rebounds, but we also give up a crap ton of offensive rebounds, like every single game.
I don't have the stats that. I mean, the stats can't really show that. It just shows the second chance points, and then it shows that Cat has a ton of rebounds. So maybe Cat's on his own out there, but I mean, maybe everybody's got to. I mean, obviously everybody can rebound a bit better if you're looking at that, but I don't know. Maybe this can have second rebound because they're allowing too many points and they're allowing too many off second chance. They got to clean up. And, 7 in a row is alarming for any team, no matter where you are in the NBA. They are playing, fortunately for them, the Pelicans on Wednesday. That should be a win. They've had a big break. They played on Friday. They play next on Wednesday. They lost to the Clippers on Friday. Plenty of time to sort it out. They've got decent coaching. They can turn it around. They're playing at home. I don't think they're too adrift. They're 10th right now in the West. They're only one game out of a playoff spot right now, so they can turn it around. But this is bad. 7 in a row, bad for any team. But let's move it on. Deshaun, who's your crisis club for today?
So my crisis club, who was picked about a month ago to win the Stanley Cup, and
on this podcast,
on this very podcast, is the Vancouver Canucks.
Shout out Jack. We did. Hey, if you want to check that out, we did an episode. I think it's something called "Are the Vancouver Canucks Stanley Cup Contenders?" Jack seemed to think that the Vancouver Canucks were the favorite to win the cup, and that they were the favorites in the West, and then they may struggle in the final to Boston, but then they can beat Boston in the Stanley Cup final. But Deshaun, continue.
Well, they've lost 3 out of 4 and 2 in a row. When it comes down to Vancouver, I don't know what it is, but they're not scoring goals right now. I mean, they scored 1 against Toronto. They had a whole bunch of chances. Freddie, probably the most underrated goalie in the league. He was just
right. I got so much heat for saying he's underrated.
He was he had 4 different types of breakaways in the third period alone, and Vancouver couldn't score. But they had 1 goal that game, and then they beat the Canes 1-0 in overtime off a lucky play where the puck was deflected to the middle of the ice, hit someone's stick that had been broken. I think it was Slavin's stick that had been broken, and then Pettersson absolutely top bins roofed it. But they have been struggling. I don't know what it is, but they've dropped from obviously first in the Pacific to now 5th, and I don't believe that they're in a playoff spot this moment, but they are 16, 14, and 4. So when it comes to Vancouver, a team that, is supposed to dominate, night in, night out. They're obviously very deep.
Well, I mean, their offense should really be doing better.
Yeah, they've had injuries up front, but I don't think that warrants.
You've got your stars. You've got Bo Horvath, you've got Elias Pettersson, you've got Brock Besser.
Those guys have all been healthy, so I don't think this really warrants the type of record that they have. JT Miller is also a point per game this year. I think that, their offense is good. They just need to, 1 goal a game. You're not winning many games in the NHL. You know what I mean? So,
and it's weird. Their offense should be their one of their stronger suits. The goaltending has drastically improved this year.
100%. Markstrom looks like an almost elite type of goalie. He's played very well. Thatcher Demko has been gross. I believe he's hurt right now, but he's been amazing this year.
He's injured.
Yeah, he's been great this year. When it comes to Vancouver, honestly, I like Vancouver a lot. They always play right after Toronto plays in Hockey Night in Canada. You always will watch Vancouver right after they play. They're a young team. They're talented. It'd be nice to see them, make the next step. But I feel like right now they're kind of going through what the Leafs had to go through, where they kind of have to learn how to win.
Yeah.
I think they have to learn how to win a little bit. I think it will come. I don't know really what's going on.
How do you think they're going to finish? Do you think they'll make the playoffs?
I hope they make the playoffs. At this pace, absolutely, obviously, that's just not going to happen. I think.
Well, at the moment, no.
Yeah, you know what I mean? But I think
especially now that the Flames have started to really improve.
The Flames, I think, are 7-0 or something like that. Something ridiculous like that. But I hope that they pick it up because I would just like to see another Canadian team. They're not the Habs, so I'd like to cheer for this Canadian team. But yeah, that's my crisis club when it comes to the NHL is the Vancouver Canucks.
But you've got another one as well. Who's your other crisis club for the week?
So the other crisis club, and they definitely are worth mentioning, are the Browns of Cleveland, Ohio.
Crisis franchise.
Crisis franchise. I don't even know if this crisis club is just for this week. I think it's obviously the decade. It's the whole decade. It's 20 years. It is this week. Basically, this week they ended their chances of ending up in the postseason. It's not going to happen.
And they ended their chance of finishing 500, losing. They got spanked by the Arizona
They
Cardinals,
got
man.
absolutely spanked. I think 38 points against. Like, Mayfield looked awful.
He looked really off.
Just overthrowing, underthrowing, interception. Couldn't hit Odell Beckham. Like, literally was unable to throw to him. And it's been like that all year.
38-24 the score. And that's the Cardinals' 4th win of the season.
Yeah. So, that's a team, especially in the hunt like that at 6-7, you can't lose that game. You have to find a way at 6-7 to go and win that game.
They weren't making the playoffs.
Well, that's the thing. So that's why I think that they're a crisis club for me is that when, you see OBJ go there, you see Kareem Hunt, he got suspended for the first 8 games. You see Nick Chubb, you're like, okay, like this could be a playoff team, especially when I look at the Steelers and they, don't have Le'Veon, they don't have Brown. You have Ben, who's a year older. You're like, okay, like this team probably is going to fall back. The Steelers obviously missed the playoffs last year with Brown, and with a year younger Roethlisberger. So you look at them and I'm like, okay, the Browns are poised to make, a push. Week 4, they're 2-2. They just come off beating the Baltimore Ravens. I think that's the last game the Ravens lost, actually.
Probably.
In week 4. But then they just followed up with a whole bunch of L's. And basically the Cleveland Browns, OBJ was said to be asking players, come get me. Apparently after yesterday's game, Jarvis Landry did the same thing. Baker Mayfield, if you look at his post-game press conferences, he looks like he's an alcoholic, like his life is just spinning and spinning and he doesn't know what to do. He's had an awful sophomore year.
His QBR is 18th in the NFL. It's 51.8. It's pretty horrific.
Yeah. But when it comes to Cleveland, I mean, they haven't had a record over 500 this decade. So they're the only
worst team of the decade.
Yeah, they're the only team in the NFL to not be over 500. So they don't have a single 9-7 season this whole decade. They're actually going to finish worse than they did last year, where they were 7-9-1 last year. Right now at 6-8, it's just
they can finish 8. I mean, they can.
No, it's they're not gonna.
Who are they playing? I actually don't know who they're playing. I can just confirm that right now.
They have to verse the Ravens and then the Bengals, so they will most likely finish 7-9 this year.
Yeah.
So did they finish 7-8-1 last year?
So they will be worse.
They're going to be worse. Yes, absolutely.
That's and you didn't mention this, but the Browns. I mean, I've said on record many times. I know Roman said it, and I know Colin has said it that Freddie Kitchens needs to go.
And he's not going.
We're not the only ones who said that, but he's not going anywhere because the Browns say he's here for a long term.
Yeah.
And I really don't understand. I don't know. Whose fault is it more, those struggles this season? Is it Baker or is it Freddie Kitchens? Who's more at fault this season?
Freddie Kitchens has single-handedly lost them games, but Baker has also had the inability to win them games. Just not coming up with the big play. Like, they were marching down the field right after Arizona scored yesterday. He overthrows OBJ, intercepted in the end zone. So, like, that inability, like, that's not on the coach. The coach doesn't tell you to overthrow someone by 3 feet and get it intercepted.
But a lot of it is down to...
But a lot of the coaching decisions, like, for example, late in games and the plays to run, it's just they're not the right plays, and that kind of costs them. But, man, like, Baker Mayfield has lost them games and kept them out of games, but Freddie Kitchens also, like, 3 or 4 times late in games has lost them games. So it's a mixture of both. I think with Mayfield, he's just a second-year quarterback, so, like, his issues, like, the talent's there. He can definitely be fixed, but Freddie Kitchens, as a first-year coach, I don't think like it's very hard to be a worse coach than that. Like I think, in 3 years, Freddie Kitchens may never work in the NFL again, and I think that's well deserved. Like I don't see them turning that around. But with Mayfield, I think he's still able to kind of get his career in the right path and then figure it out. Whether that's with Cleveland, I don't know. Browns fans, if there are any anymore, I feel like they're all
they came out for a year.
Yeah,
all right, this year we're winning Super Bowls. This year we're contenders. This year, I was going to say they weren't going to make the playoffs this year, but I thought they would be. I mean, the record isn't awful.
What? I mean, they were 7-8-1 last year.
I thought they'd be more competitive. I thought they'd be better. I thought they would have improved this year. I thought they could improve again next year and be possible contenders next year. But the way it's looking is that a lot of these guys want out, and it doesn't look like Freddie Kitchens is the man who's going to convince them to stay.
So my question is, all these guys are obviously under contract, but that doesn't mean anything in certain sports. If you
player power trumps everything.
Yeah. If you want out, you want out. That's it. NBA, NFL, they're the same way. But when it comes to OBJ and Jarvis Landry, what is the percentage that these guys come back next year and play in Cleveland?
For OBJ, I mean, Jarvis Landry is a relatively new one. And I'm that one. I'm not sure yet. I gotta figure out more because that was literally like today we found that out. When it comes to OBJ, you asked me this yesterday, and I said probably like 60 to 65% OBJ comes back because OBJ is prone to a bit of an overreaction from time to time, and I know player power trumps everything, but this is a good core that they have, so I think they can find a way to get him to stay. But I mean, 60, 65 still leaves 35 to 40% the other way. Could see him getting traded. Team comes with a good package, they could trade him. But again, it's a bit of a risk. This is there's no secret. I mean, OBJ's been quiet this year in terms of attitude issues. He hasn't said anything, right? People have this trade rumor is from other sources reporting it. It's not OBJ saying this, right? So OBJ's done a good job of keeping quiet in that respect. But what you have to worry about, the antics a little bit. And if he wants out, you don't know if Cleveland going to get the package in the trade that they would warrant.
What did they give up? OBJ. They gave the Giants Jabril Peppers and a first or something like that.
I think Jabril and then a first and a third.
Okay.
Something like that. I don't know if we even got a first, to be honest.
Okay.
I feel like it was. Let me find the trade.
When it comes to OBJ, I think there's zero chance that he comes back next year. I think that they will absolutely look to move him, and when you have a wide receiver like that, any team that has the cap space is gonna trade for him right away. I just think he's not in the right situation. I thought he would be with he caught Eli with basically in the twilight of his career, the dead arm situation. Eli is not able to throw the ball. For what OBJ needs, he needs to be.
I can't even imagine how fun it would be watching Daniel Jones play with OBJ. Man, I am still very hurt from that trade. It was.
You think?
It was a first and a third, and Jabril Peppers for OBJ. Okay. I remember when the trade happened. I was.
Yeah, absolutely. You were on watch.
I remember. It was. I said to Colin Roman, I said it was the worst I'd ever felt as a Giants fan in my life, and to this day, there's a bit of that still reminiscing about. I'm still reminiscing a bit about that because it was bad.
Do you think New York would trade for him back? I saw a report that they're considering it, either the Jets or Giants.
The offense isn't that big a problem. I think we gotta bolster the defense. I don't think it makes sense to go trading for. I know that Jabril Peppers obviously bolstered the defense, but for OBJ. OBJ, Saquon, and Daniel Jones playing together, man, what an offense. What an offense that would have been. You could, stack your O-line, and you could be set, even with a subpar defense. But that can't happen anymore, so, it's just water under the bridge. So, as of right now, I don't know I don't know, maybe the Patriots would come for OBJ?
Yeah, absolutely. Bill Belichick would find a way to get that done.
So
100%.
I don't know. We'll see how that is. Anyways, that's enough on the Cleveland Browns. Let's move on. Are you done? Any more to talk about?
No, I think that's really it. Another team that could be in the mix, obviously, as we found out today, The Seahawks could definitely want to go after a guy like him, you know, a number one receiver.
Imagine Russell Wilson playing.
Wilson playing with, like, he'd be gross.
Yeah, and like, I actually, the Josh Gordon news just came out that he got suspended for PEDs. But I actually didn't even check how long that suspension was.
Well, I mean, he got suspended indefinitely from the NFL once before for drug use.
Yeah, well, he's been suspended twice for drug use.
But when it comes to him, man, like, you just wish that he'd make better decisions.
The length isn't here. The length on that isn't out yet.
Yeah,
so we don't know how long he's out for.
He's a very talented player.
Oh yeah.
And, you know, it's just, it seems like every year he just has some issue that he didn't play in the playoffs last year for the Patriots, even though they won the Super Bowl, because of some outlying drug use or whatever.
Such talent. I mean, a lot of third down situations. Russell Wilson is looking for Josh Gordon. So we'll see how the Seahawks can recover. They are first in their division now. So that could be actually they might be first in the conference.
They are first. They are first.
I know they're first in division.
No, they're first overall. I'm pretty sure. 100%.
So there you go. Anyways, let's move on to the final team of this segment of Christ Club Monday, and we're going back to the NBA for the Atlanta Hawks. The Atlanta Hawks started the season 3-0. They look good. I remember Roman had them as a 5 seed in the East for the end of the season. I had them sneaking into the playoffs around the 7th or 8th spot, but they have gone 3-21 since they started 3-0. They're now 6-21, and you know, with the Minnesota Timberwolves, the defense sucks, but the offense is good. But with Atlanta, both of them suck. They're 28th in the NBA. So they're 26th in the NBA for their offensive rating at 104.4. Their defensive rating is 113.7, which is 27th in the NBA. So whichever way you look at it, whichever side of the ball you look at it, they are awful. And it could be a lot down to John Collins missing a lot of action. But he hasn't been, he's only played 5 games, so there's not really a lot to say. But DeAndre Hunter's been decent. Jabari Parker's had a bit of a revelation in his career this season. He's putting up 16 points per game. But Cam Reddish, I thought would be better. I thought Cam Reddish would be a top 3.
He's been doo-doo.
I thought he would be top 3 for the Rookie of the Year conversation this year. Like, honestly. Before the season started, all the rookies voted that Cam Reddish had the highest ceiling out of everybody in the draft, and he would be the best player out of the draft. The rookies in the draft class voted that Cam Reddish would be the best player. Not Zion, not John Morant, Cam Reddish. And he's not living up to that so far. You got Alex Len playing center. Does Alex Len start? I think he starts.
He does start, but I looked at Alex Len, it's his 7th year in the league, and I'm like, man, how's this guy played 7
He's a center, and he averages 5 rebounds a game.
Yeah, he's bad, man.
Shout out Alex Len, the most dominant player in NBA history. But, other than Trae Young, you're not getting much.
So do you think that's a factor to do with Trae Young, the fact that the teammates can't get going? Or is that just... Because, man, you look at the games, I think he's getting 30 and 9 every game.
Trae Young?
Yeah.
So do I think what? What are you asking?
Are you is that Trae Young's fault that they're unable to get it done? Or is it just the talent? I read a report, and whether it's true or not, but the Atlanta Hawks kind of acknowledge it, just the pieces aren't around him right now.
I don't put it on Trae Young. I think you can put a bit of the defense on Trae Young, and this is a young team, right? It's gonna be hard to be a good defensive team with a young team. You need good defensive pieces to allow Trae Young to play 35 minutes per game, and the fact that the offense sucks is not on Trae Young, because Trae Young he's averaging 28. He's averaging 8.5 assists.
Yeah.
That is phenomenal for a guy like Trae Young. That is great. And his player efficiency is going up. He's at almost 23. He's a good scorer, and he's putting up crazy numbers. His shooting has gotten a lot better. He's gone from 32% from 3 to 37, and he's gone from 42% from the field to 44. He's getting better, and it's going to continue to get better. And he only shoots 20.6 shots a game, which is good when you're putting up 28 points. That you can respect that, because guys like Tatum are shooting over 18 times a game
Tatum's
with 20
trash.
points.
Tatum's not in this conversation.
So,
Tatum's awful.
but like that's what I'm gonna base it, like kind of base it off. Like you know, guys like Luka Doncic are shooting. Like I believe he's shooting this many times a game as well. He's putting up 30 points. Like this is efficient. Yeah, Luka Doncic shooting just a little bit under amount of attempts per game, and he's a little bit more point. But that's because Luka's so great.
Luka's Luka.
But it's not on Trae Young. It's on a lot of these other guys, and it comes down to the team that they've created around him, because it's clear that the defense isn't there, and it's clear they missed John Collins on offense. They missed that 19 points per game. He's at 17 through his first 5 games. He's getting a ton of boards too. He's gonna come around. But hey, in a few years, I think this team could make movements, because Cam Reddish has crazy athleticism that he can just develop into, and just can build his game around his athleticism. He can figure it out. DeAndre Hunter looking pretty promising, almost 13 points per game. Like, this guy could be something. He's only 22, and if you can get Jabari Parker actually playing, then this team could do things. And I like Bruno Fernando. They drafted Bruno Fernando last year. I actually like him. I believe he was. Oh, where did he come out of? I forget what university, what college it was, but Bruno Fernando was a guy that I watched in the tournament, and I was very fond of the way he played. Which I need to find his.
When it comes to the Hawks,
for Maryland, he played for Maryland. That's what it was.
They have the most top 10 picks on their roster, and they can't find a way to get it together. Like I don't understand what the issue is. Like what is the underlying issue? What is the things that they need to fix in their defense? Like
well, it's offense too.
Like that's what I'm saying. So they don't have anything done. They've got all this young, promising talent. Like I said, top 10 picks. Like those are all lottery picks. You know how many teams wish they could pick in the lottery that many times? Like it's very hard to still not be able to build a team properly, and you have that many top 10 picks in the last 4 years.
I don't know. Maybe there's not
the only other team that compares how many times they picked in the top 10 is obviously the Phoenix Suns. But they're further along than
the only thing I can say about this team is that there's a lack of, you draft your young guys to fit in that puzzle with the current players you have who have some NBA ability. So, I guess for the Phoenix, they traded for Ricky Rubio, and I did the Ricky Rubio effect in an episode, and I talked about how that, piecing that with the team has made them this much better this season. Right now they're in a playoff spot. But with the Hawks, they don't have anybody like that. They need that veteran kind of player.
So I agree.
This is a young team, and they don't know how to play together right now.
I agree, and I think the only vet on that team is really Vince Carter and
Evan Turner.
Yeah, but when it comes to VC and as much as I love him because what he did for Toronto, he's not an NBA player who should be playing as many minutes as he does for the Atlanta Hawks.
Yeah, he gets 16 minutes a game.
Yeah, for a 42-year-old,
43.
That's unacceptable. In the NBA, those should be a young guy's minutes. And you can say, oh yeah, the young guys don't work as hard or whatever, but he's getting those minutes based solely off the fact that Atlanta knows that they're not going anywhere. You can't find me another situation where a guy that old is getting that many minutes on a successful
there's
team.
not a ton of options.
No, but that's what I'm saying.
Cam Reddish is playing 25 minutes per game, and he's not even playing that well.
That's what I'm saying. On a successful team, that's not an answer for you. You find some 30-year-old player that can get it done for you. And I think
they need veteran players.
For example, you see how the Knicks have 3,000 power forwards on their roster. Yeah. That should have been the scenario. They should have got one of those guys to go down there in Atlanta and play ball. Because Vince Carter, and love him, much respect to his career, but he should be like Udonis Haslem, where you don't see him. He's there, he smiles, whatever. He may check in once every 10 games, but not playing 16 minutes a night. You're not going anywhere in that case.
Even a guy if they could go for, Marcus Morris wouldn't make sense, but a guy who am I looking for? Taj Gibson. That wouldn't be a bad guy to have. I get you have John Collins, but Todd Gibson can be a stretch 5.
He's a veteran player. Like I think that there are better options. Like Vince Carter can't defend anybody.
Neither can Trae Young, really.
Vince Carter can't create for anyone. Like, what is he doing when he's playing? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just those are 16 minutes every night that you're basically going to waste. Like Alex Len, what does he do? You know what I mean? So that team.
What does what does Alex Len do? Because he doesn't score a lot. He doesn't get rebounds because he only has like 5 a game, playing almost 18 minutes. What does Alex Len do? It is one of life's greatest mysteries.
Like, man, like it's a tough situation. Like I don't understand what the fix is for the Atlanta Hawks because they have all this, like I said, top 10 talent, and
it's veteran players. Like straight up, that's it for me. Like John, I mean, this is promising for the future, but if you want to be successful right now, you need veteran players. John Collins is 22, Trae Young's 21, DeAndre Hunter 22, Dwight Parker's only 24, Cam Reddish is only 20. Damian Jones, 24. Alex Len is only 26. Like, he's not old either. Bruno Fernando's 21. Like, veteran players. You need to piece in the draft picks with veteran players who have some ability in the NBA. But it's clearly not working having only young players playing together. That's what it is for me. Because their pace of play is really high. But they lose so many games. Like, oh my God. They've gone 3-21, right?
Yeah.
But we'll end it there. Thank you for listening to another episode. Thank you for Deshaun for being on the episode. If you have another Crisis Club that we didn't mention, you can comment on YouTube at Amateur Sports. You can hit us up at Amateur PDC on Twitter and Instagram. If you're listening on Spotify, follow there. And as usual, keep coming back. There's daily episodes.